Thank you all. It's good to be back. Everyone put your sharp knife down, and I'm going to do a quick poll. Who here is from what you would deem a rural community? Just about 10 people?
No, ask again.
From not a big city in Texas. Okay. A few. All right. Those who raise your hands, who thinks that they need more health care in their community? Okay. Hopefully, when you make your visits tomorrow, you will let them know that's what you want, because that's really kind of what I'm going to talk about this evening. I have one pointer but two screens. We're going to have some graphs later, and I'll try and go to this screen because I can't do both of them. But if y'all are ready, I'm ready. So let me, where do I point it to make it go? Okay. First is disclosures. I am here in my role as an officer in the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists. The state of Texas is District 11. We have 13 districts. There's 4 statewide districts: New York, California, Texas, and Florida. The rest of our districts are collections of the geography around the United States, Canada, Central and South America. I don't have any conflicts of interest, and everything I say is my opinion. I'm not here representing my employer, which is Texas A&M College of Medicine, so keep that in mind. In fact, everything I'm going to tell you is published in the medical literature, so even if it was their opinion, you can go look it up. So first is, who's the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists? You have to be a physician who is board certified, which means you have to finish all your training, pass a test, both a written and an oral exam, before you can be a fellow in the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists. And most hospitals will not let you practice in their hospital as an obstetrician gynecologist unless you are board certified. So medicine is a highly regulated industry, especially in hospitals. It's still highly regulated in non-hospital settings like clinics and those kinds of things, but hospital privileges are very particular about the board certification, and that is one of the issues that the legislature will be looking at this year. Just for your information, our issues are being ACOG. We have lots of issues regarding women's health, but the top 3 for us this year are about reproductive health. And the main thing that we are going to focus on is to decriminalize evidence-based medical practice in the state of Texas. We are also interested in rural health, and so that's why I was asking who's from a rural community, because it requires a certain amount of obstetrical volume to actually make sense for a hospital to have a labor and delivery unit or an OB-GYN doctor to be in that labor and delivery unit. Family medicine physicians, some do practice obstetrics. Some of them are quite skilled obstetricians and have been doing it a long time. But for the most part, most family medicine physicians don't do OB anymore because they're on call every night because many of their partners don't do OB, and if they do it and their partners don't, then they're on call every night, and that's really hard to do. Not impossible, but very, very hard. So there's some substitutes for obstetrical care. The ACOG feels that should be in partnership with physicians. We should have nurse midwives, certified nurse midwives. We should all work together as a team, and the patient should be in the right place at the right time with the right people caring for her depending upon what her problem is. We all know that long before there were obstetricians, women were having babies, and we also know that that has been a political issue since the pharaohs told the midwives to kill the male children in ancient Egypt. So This audience gets that joke. I tell that to medical students, and most of them go, what is this guy talking about? So, and the last thing is we are concerned about the payment system. We all know we've lived in decades of inflation. The state of Texas pays for a delivery in the state of Texas the same thing it did 25 years ago. And we did get a slight raise of about 2% in the last legislative session, something like that. So it hasn't been totally frozen for 25 years, but pretty much it has been. Next slide. Okay, so my objectives tonight, I'm going to start speeding it up, is to give you an overview of medical education so you understand the problem that I'm going to show you the problem. Which most of you are not aware of this problem yet. I'm then going to review some recent events in Texas, which many of you may or may not be familiar with. And I'm going to ask you a few questions, and then I'll stay as long as y'all want. I have nothing else to do tonight for as many questions as you guys want me to be here for. Next slide. Okay. You may not be able to see this. I put this here just so you know how long it takes to be a physician. If you go to the internet, from the day you graduate from high school, the minimum is about 9 years of training before you can say, I am ready to practice medicine and have a license in any state in the union. In my case, born and raised in Dallas, went to public high school, went to Tulane University, was a chemistry major, then went to Tulane Med School down in New Orleans after doing a year of research. I trained in UTMB in Galveston for 4 years, did my MFM fellowship up at Parkland in Dallas at UT Southwestern. That was at the time 2 years, that's now a 3-year program. And was on the faculty there for 10 years, then in private practice about 8 years. Then I started the residency at Brackenridge Hospital here with UTMB, which after a hurricane became UT Southwestern, and then after some political and funding issues became Dell Medical School for the University of Texas. I left that position in 2016 to go run the MFM fellowship up at Parkland in 2016, and I was there till 2022 when my wife said, you have to stop going to Dallas. I got my Medicare card. I do not need your private insurance anymore. So, plus, I had a cataract, and with the pandemic, I couldn't get it fixed. And probably when you're in your 70s, you have no business operating on people in a busy hospital. So I don't see patients anymore, but I do still teach medical students some basic things at A&M up in Round Rock. Okay. In general, you can go to the internet, check this out. Here it is, college. You go to college and you go to medical school. Then you have to do residency training, which is minimum of 2 years. In Texas, you have to complete a residency to get a license to practice medicine in Texas. Some states don't have that. If you want to do a subspecialty like I did, that's another 1 to 4 years minimum. And then specialty board certification. Some specialties, as soon as the last day of your program, you're board certified. For surgical specialties, they want to make sure that you can go out and actually do surgery and your patients do okay, and they review you, so that takes a couple of years to get board certified. OB-GYN is one of those specialties because we do surgeries on people. And whether we like it or not, the cesarean section is the most commonly performed surgery on earth, so we do those. So that's major abdominal surgery. Okay. Here we go. So my case was 17 years. I graduated from high school in 1971. I got board certified in 1988, and I was working on it the whole time. The range is minimum of 9 years. That's if you get out of college in 2 years. And if you are a subspecialist in, say, neurosurgery or pediatric ICU, it might take up to 22 years to become board certified. So when you say we need a doctor in town, that investment is 10 to 22 years of someone's life. Most of them will be moving to town with a couple $150,000 to $200,000 worth of debt to pay for all of this education. So it's really hard to get a physician in a pipeline, especially in a big, rural, growing state like the state of Texas. So that's the challenge that the legislature has been working on for 2 decades. They've funded new residency programs, they've funded new medical schools, all to try and get the right kind of health care for the citizens of the state of Texas. And in many cases, they've been generous and done a pretty good job. Unfortunately, these laws, which got passed in 2021, went into effect in 2022, and after that, has interrupted that pipeline in many of the states, and I'm going to show you the evidence that that's the case. The other thing that it's important for you to understand is in that education, all physicians are required to demonstrate professionalism and medical ethics. Ethics is a complicated topic, but there's 4 basic pillars of medical ethics, and one is do good, beneficence, don't hurt people, non-maleficence. The patient gets to decide, that is called autonomy, and it should be fair. All the patients should be treated the same way, whether they're poor people, rich people, any other kind of people. We take care of the patients and their needs. That is our job. Our job is not to tell people how to live their life. We can give them advice about that, but it's really their job to do it. Okay, so we cannot enforce our advice, and many of you probably had discussions with the physician you see, and they gave you advice that you chose to ignore. That happens a lot in life. But if they're doing their job, they're trying to give you the best evidence-based advice that they know. And so that is our job. And unfortunately, the abortion laws in Texas violate all 4 of those ethics. Beneficence, I am going to tell you some stories to prove that we are not doing good, and I think you guys just saw a movie that underscores that fact. Women are being harmed in Texas, and I'm going to show you those stories. Clearly, the patient cannot speak for herself, so she does not get the opportunity to make a decision for herself. And in most cases, society trusts the mother of a child or the unborn child to make a decision that's in the best interest of their child. Obviously, if they do not do that correctly, the state has an interest in protecting the child. But for the most part, the assumption is a mother is going to want to do what is best for her and her family. And she gets to decide at the end of the day. And the current Texas abortion laws violate that principle of autonomy. And if we try and do the right thing, as I think you guys have already seen in your movie, and I'm going to give you some other cases, we're not acting in a just fashion because people are not being treated correctly and fairly because of these laws, because of fear which has been inserted into the practice of medicine in the state of Texas. So, as you saw in the movie, there has been attempts to try and correct some of these things. You all now know the story of Zorowski and Kate Cox. I don't know if they were in the movie or not, but in the Texas state courts, no action was taken. The governor and the Texas Medical Board, no action as recently as 2024, which was just last month. And Texas legislature is the opportunity, so hopefully I will provide you with some facts to tell the stories tomorrow and over the subsequent weeks to maybe get some of this change. So I got about 3 questions for y'all. One is, which I'm going to answer for you, what is the impact of abortion laws on Texas women and families? So you've already seen one movie that had multiple families and women impacted. If you didn't see it, 1 year ago in New Yorker magazine was a maternal death where the fetus died. The fetus was over 30 weeks gestation. There's no reason for that fetus to die. I was called because I'm an obstetrician in Texas and happened to be the chair of the Texas OB-GYN at the time by the reporter who wrote this story. And she had heard about the story from someone and she wanted my opinion. I said, I didn't see the woman. I don't know what happened. But her premise was the abortion law is what caused this woman, Ms. Glick, to die while she was pregnant. I looked at her chart. She spent almost a year preparing this story, interviewing people. She took several trips. She actually went out to the hospital in Luling, Edgar B. Davis, not Luling, LaGrange, Edgar B. Davis Hospital, which when I was medical director at Seton, I used to go visit that hospital when they had an OB service out there. But Jennifer Glick, in my opinion, she would not have chosen an abortion even if it would have been legal. She had obesity, diabetes, and hypertension. She had all of that before she got pregnant, and those were complications of pregnancy which made her ill and subsequently killed her. And because of the absence of care available to her in that rural county, they had to do a post-mortem C-section in the ambulance to try and save the baby, and the baby also died. I'm sorry? Okay, this is the one chart. I actually looked at the medical record. I used to go to that hospital. I know this story well. Really, what caused her death was the fact that she was in the wrong place at the wrong time with the wrong condition, and the facilities in her county were unable to care for her adequately for her problems. So we, the obstetricians in Texas, have spent the last 20 years trying to get the Texas legislature to fund a referral system to try and correct that deficit, because every blinking red light in the state of Texas cannot have a level 3 nursery sitting on that corner. So the idea is identify the mothers, get the mothers in the right place at the right time for their problems so we can optimize their outcome. And I personally have worked in hospitals, Parkland Hospital in Dallas, Breckenridge Hospital, John Seeley Hospital, St. David's Hospital, Seton Hospital. If Ms. Glick would have been in one of the hospitals I worked in with the level 3 nursery, she'd be alive and she'd be bouncing her baby on her knee today. The problem was she was out in LaGrange in the wrong place, and she did not get the care she needed because she was in the wrong place. So that is a different problem than the abortion law. So in my opinion, the abortion law did not kill her. And when this story came in the New Yorker, there were lots of other editorials written about the story. But I don't think the abortion law per se affected her care. Her care problem was a different problem which has been exacerbated by the abortion law, and that is the data that I'm going to show you. So the March of Dimes, if you don't know, does a lot of studies about maternity care. They have kind of coined the term the maternity care desert. And you can go to their website. I'm going to have a slide. B can give you all these references if you want to look them up yourself. But this one came from the March of Dimes. Perry Stats is the name of it, and it has every state in the nation. What they also do is they give a report card. And the most recent report card was 2024, and the state of Texas got a D. The March of Dimes report card, and you can see here, D is yellow, the hot pink is an F, and there's one state, Vermont, that actually gets an A from the March of Dimes based on World Health Organization data. But the rest of the states are generally better. The reason we got a D is, on this slide, we do pretty well when it comes to infant mortality in the state of Texas. We have some fantastic Children's Hospital, Texas Children's Hospital, every big city has a big children's hospital or multiple big children's hospitals. So if we can get that infant into the right place, they get high quality care, and the neonatologists who take care of those newborn babies do a great job in Texas. The challenge is getting the mother who's in the wrong place to be in the right place so her infant can benefit from that care. And that is what obstetricians, social workers, health policy planners, hospital administrators, that's what we're all trying to crack that nut without breaking the bank. But that is the challenge. So that's the March of Dimes. We got a D. Then later in the year, last summer, the Commonwealth Fund did their rating. They just looked at women's health. They kind of erased the infant neonate part and just looked at women's health. And the state of Texas, based on a conglomeration of 35 different criteria that all the states got applied, we were 50 out of 51. 51 was Mississippi. Thank God for Mississippi. When I started practicing medicine, they had these things in Texas. I delivered my first baby in the parking lot of UTMB John Seeley Hospital in late June of 1980 when cattle were dying in Galveston County because of the heat. I was getting my tour to start my internship on July 1, and it was June 27th, and a nurse grabbed me, and I delivered the baby in the backseat of a car in the parking lot of John Seeley Hospital, and I've been doing it ever since. So I know a lot about having babies, delivering babies, where they go in the state of Texas. And we have some good hospitals here, but we need to get the patients in the good hospitals and let those hospitals do the good they know how to do. So that's your charge tomorrow. Because right now, if you look just at maternal health, the only place more dangerous in the state of Texas is Mississippi. And it's 51 because they count District of Columbia. It's not a state, but it's 51 is what they count. So these are the patients we know about. Jocely Barnica. She was about 17 weeks pregnant. You can see her there with her first baby. She wanted her second baby. She had a problem. She went to a hospital and they said, ooh, we have a heartbeat law, we can't help you. You have to go someplace else. She went to another hospital. They said, ooh, we have a heartbeat law, we can't help you. She died of an infection. She's dead, her baby's dead. That infant in her arms is motherless. So that was a direct fact and fallout from a woman who didn't want an abortion. She wanted a baby. She's dead. Her baby's dead because of these abortion laws. That needs to change. Next one, Navia Crane. Graduated from high school, had a boyfriend, got pregnant, don't think she was, I don't know. I just read this article. I don't see her medical record. This is just in the newspaper. But it sounded like she was happy with her pregnancy. She had a fever, went to a ER. They said, we can't help you, yet there's a heartbeat. You might have an infection, go home. Went to another one, having problems. Oh, we can't help you. You're pregnant. The law won't let us take care of you. So she died of an infection. Her baby died. She was about 17 weeks. So 2 maternal child deaths right there. Ms. Glick, maternal and baby death. Her baby was 30 weeks along. Actually, Navia Crane, reading the article, and I just read it last night, she was someplace between 24 because she died at the end of October, and the story said she knew she had a positive pregnancy test at her high school graduation, so that made her at least 6 weeks in May. So by my magic obstetrical calculation, she was probably about 24 to 28 weeks would be my guess. So that is a baby that would do well, most likely do well if it was born in the right place, at the right time, with the right caregivers. She was sent away because they were afraid to care for her because of these abortion laws. Multiple hospitals, greater Houston area. So that's 2. Next one, this is the one that really kills me. A third woman died. This is all end of the year, last year. These came out in the newspaper. Again, this one's Houston area. Wanted the baby, started bleeding, having evidence of a miscarriage. They said, oh, we can't take care of you, there's a heartbeat. She went to another hospital, they sent her away. She went to the next hospital. We can't take care of you, there's a heartbeat. Kept bleeding, kept bleeding. She bled to death. Bled to death because her embryo, which was on its way out from a spontaneous miscarriage, caused bleeding, and they would not treat her bleeding, and she died. And I will tell you, there is no reason in the United States of America that any woman should bleed to death when we have blood banks all over the state of Texas. I used to be on the board of the blood bank of Travis County, and I'm telling you, this did not need to happen, and it happened because of these laws, and these laws must change. So, that is my opinion. Again, I personally reviewed the actual medical record of the Glick case, and it really broke my heart because 3 of the physicians caring for her, I actually trained. But they were not allowed to keep her in the hospital. It was on the cusp of the pandemic. They were trying to get people out, and they kept sending her home. And in the hospital in Dallas County I worked in, pandemic, no pandemic, if they need to be in the hospital, we kept them in the hospital. They said, we don't have room, blah, 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 and they sent her back out to LaGrange, and then when it started getting serious, it was hard to get to her and get her back to where she needed to be. So that was strictly a system problem. It's tragic, didn't need to happen, but it did happen. These others, I guarantee you, every nurse in all of those buildings, every doctor in all of those buildings knew exactly what to do so those other 3 women would not have died of infection and hemorrhage, but they were not allowed to do what they knew, which is appropriate medical care because of the laws in Texas. So, those are the cases we know about. You know about some other cases because you saw some people that didn't die on your movie, okay? But I think there's a big iceberg out there. I keep hearing stories of colleagues, and especially down on the border, we got some serious problems in the state of Texas. And we're killing women who want to be pregnant, want to have a family. These are not women looking for abortion. We are punishing women who want to have a healthy family, and we're killing them, and that needs to stop. So, what makes the iceberg so big? Well, it starts with a mental mindset. Then there's a structure to the healthcare system, and that's what y'all are going to be talking about tomorrow, I hope. Then there's patterns of behavior in response to those, and then the events happen, and we see the little events, but there's a big, huge problem underneath the surface that needs to be addressed before this is going to change. So, question 1, what's the impact of abortion laws on Texas women and families? They are being harmed. What's the solution? Remove criminal penalties for evidence-based health care. Those 2 infections, that woman who bled to death, I gave the lecture, if y'all were here last year, I gave you kind of the light, I gave 4 hours of lectures to medical students this morning. Should have been last week, but it was snowing. This morning, I gave them the same slides I gave you guys last year. So you knew more than our freshman class until about noon today, and now they know more than you. So they know what to do, and it's not a secret. It's been working for years. This situation has disrupted the normal, routine, evidence-based medical practice for women's health in the state of Texas. So if someone thinks someone's not following the law, we already have a system, the Texas Medical Board, hospital staff, you can be disciplined. There's ways to do this. You do not have to threaten people with jail time and have anybody in your neighborhood being able to sue you with no possibility of them losing because of this. They need to change that aspect of the law. Question number 2. what is the impact of abortion laws on the workforce, the physician workforce, and broader elements of care? So this is just this month. 1 year later, same author, she interviewed this physician here, Tony Ogburn. I've known Tony for 25 years. He started working on indigenous reservations in the Four Corners in New Mexico, and then he moved down to the Rio Grande Valley, was the first chairman of the OB-GYN department, started an OB-GYN residency, was doing good to a part of the state that really needed some people down there. This law closed his department and ran everybody off. So Rio Grande Valley does not have an OB-GYN residency anymore at UTRGV. The chairman is now taking call at the hospital in San Antonio, just doing the Lord's work there. But there's an entire segment of the state that has lost care because this law scared all of his faculty to death, and they just said, we got to move away. I don't want to go to jail for doing my job. So they're gone. The department's gone. The residency's closed. You can read the details in New Yorker from about a month ago. It's available. There's other people I noticed on the sign, the Hershey Foundation. I'd never heard of the Hershey Foundation before about a year ago, and they sponsored this Manette study, the Texas OB-GYN physician workforce up there in the blue in the corner. It's a 32-page document. Just Google it. You can read the whole thing. I'm going to show you a few of their slides. But they did a survey of all the trainees, residents, and practicing physicians in the state of Texas. They ask everybody to fill out a survey. And with all surveys, not everybody fills it out. But here is a summary of their data in a second. The other item on the slide is the AAMC. You may not be familiar with the AAMC. That stands for American Association of Medical Colleges. That is the allopathic medical schools, and there's about 130 of them. They are in an organization that graduates medical students, so they are, as we're going to see in a second, kind of the 800-pound gorilla in the doctor-producing machine. But there's other gorillas in there with them, but they're the 800-pound one. What's valuable about their data, which I am getting ready to share with you, is they set up it's been about 20 years ago. I was a program director, started about 20 years ago. They set up a computerized application program to save the students time of licking stamps and filling out a bunch of different pieces of paper. You just go online, put all your data in, they collate it, then the programs can get the data from their computer, which is a database. So they have the actual data filled in by the students who are applying for training in all the specialties in the United States of America, and they have collated this data to look at what is the impact of the Dobbs decision on what medical students are doing. So these students are the pipeline. So just keep that in mind. So that's who the AAMC is. And just, here's that slide I showed you before. I'm going to use my point. No. Use my point. Can you guys see that? See the little blue? That is the piece of the pipeline. All the things are the pipeline, but the AAMC controls for the allopathic medical schools all the applications of the medical students into the residency training. So this is the best data that exists. This isn't a survey where people, maybe I'll fill that out. This is the real files. And I went to a meeting about a month and a half ago where their research arm, it's well funded, they got a lot of money, they got a lot of people, and they know what they're doing, and they do it well. They presented this data, and I'm going to share it with you. It's published. You can go look it up yourself. The references are available from me if you want them. So what you're seeing on this slide, I guess, is These are states after the Dobbs ban, and the colors, which you may not see here, the colors represent, the dark blue is all the states in the United States, the yellow is states where abortion is banned, that includes Texas. The light blue or teal or whatever, I guess aquamarine, that's where there might be a soft ban like gestational limits like some states have. And then the gray is a state that really has no limits on the abortion. So now the United States after Dobbs, it's a mixed bag. Everybody knows who those states are. Anybody can look it up. So they just sorted the data of applications based on the states for this one slide here. And you can see that here in, what year is this? This is 23 to 24, so this is the most recent year. For all the doctors in the pipeline is this group here. Just the ND school, which is AAMC, is right here. We have about 30 DO schools, osteopathic medical schools in the United States. There's 3 now here in Texas. They have about 25 to 30% of all graduates going into the residency training. They seem to be acting differently than the other schools. I can't explain why, but that's what the data shows. And this IMG is international medical graduates. Those are physicians who have practiced in another country, went to school in another country, trained in another country. They want to come to the United States, and virtually every state says if you want to practice medicine in our state, you must repeat your residency training in a United States program. So that's who these people are. This is only about 3% of the whole group, whereas the osteopathic medical students at osteopathic schools, they're about 25 to 30%, and the remainder, 70 to 65 to 70% are the American medical schools. So the American medical schools, allopathic, are what the AAMC has the actual applications, because some of these other schools don't really go through that same computer system, if you will. So they have published their data sorted out year after year by state and specialty. So I'm going to just share that with you. You can see up here, this is data from the state of Texas applications. And this is all specialties, OB-GYN, pediatrics, surgery, everything. You can see down here is year to year to year to year that after Dobbs, which happened in 2022, for all specialties, the applications in Texas went down by 11%. And it went down more this year than the year before. This was after the pandemic, it went up because some people had stopped and then they went back to school. So there was a little bump from the baseline for a year or two due to the pandemic. So that's all specialties. Back to the Manat survey. This is practicing OB-GYNs and people in training. And the question is, are you worried about these laws in Texas? So 72% over here said, I'm worried because I'm unable to practice the best possible medical care. So these are people, even when you're a resident, you're taking care of patients, you're not a student. These are medical practitioners, either in training or out of training, board certified, working in hospitals. 72% are worried because they cannot practice medical care that they know how to practice. Another 76% another 29% say they're totally confused about the legal landscape despite what their lawyers have told them, what they read in the news. They really don't know what these laws say because we're not lawyers. We didn't go to law school. We go to medical school. We take care of people. And, what you read in the newspaper and what goes on in the Texas Supreme Court, it's important for sure, but that's just not what we do all day. And most people just feel like if you ask them, they go, I really don't know what the answer is. And 60% of them are afraid. So if you go to work every day and you're afraid that you might do what you were trained to do and that someone may disagree with that, arrest you and put you in jail for life, how long do you think they're going to keep that job? Okay? And so that's what we're dealing with. That's why we need to eliminate the criminal penalties. People should not go to work, do their job to help other people, and be afraid of losing their livelihood and being separated from their family in prison for the rest of their life. So that's what we're dealing with. So the bottom here is what the residents in training responded. So back to the AAMC. This is for the specialty of OB-GYN. This is just a drill down on the specific specialty. We looked at all specialties. So for OB-GYN, you can see over here, it's going down in the last application cycle, 16% lower applications than the year before. The year before was 6% less than the year before that, which was 10% less, and they didn't start asking the question until a Dobbs decision. So we really didn't have post-Dobbs questions before Dobbs. So that's why there's no data available. Recall the other slide, it had been an increase in applications because we have more medical schools opening, more people coming in the pipeline, a few other things. That's why it went up 2 to 3%. So this is OB-GYN doctors. This is the all specialties we looked at before. This is emergency medicine physicians. So it's not just OB-GYN people are leaving. Everybody's leaving. And I heard about this 2 years ago because a friend of mine, she's a female OB-GYN doctor here in town. She's active in the TMA, Women's Medicine Special Interest Group, which was formed when it was kind of unusual for women to be in medicine. Now, about half the graduates are women, so I don't know how long they're going to be having their special lunch, probably forever. But I'm still not invited, by the way. But anyway, so these are the emergency medicine physicians. They went way down after the pandemic because they're just going, this is crazy. I don't want to be putting my life at risk taking care of people in the ER that doesn't have a mask for me. So we had some pandemic fallout in this particular specialty of ER medicine. It bounced back a little, but it's still down 11% year over year for the latest year. Family medicine. So all of you rural people, you probably don't have OB-GYN doctors. You might not have ER doctors out there, but you got family medicine doctors. They're down 13%. Internal medicine. That's the doctors for people like me and some of you, I suspect. They're going down 10% 1 year. These are applications for the residency training in our state, which our tax dollars has invested in building these slots for medical students to come train, to stay here in the state of Texas, and people are losing interest in our state. And they're not going away, they're just going to other states. And this is the one that is all the other people like the neurosurgeons and the dermatologists and that kind of stuff. It's down also. And these are people that really, they don't take care of pregnant women that are bleeding or, fever. They do other stuff. General surgeons, they don't want to come here either. And this is the one that really scares me. This is the pediatricians. And you can go in and read some of these articles. Why wouldn't a pediatrician, what would a pediatrician care about, the baby's already out? Because they talk to teenage girls that want birth control, that might get pregnant, that, they're trying to help these young girls mature into reasonable, productive women, and they're afraid they will not be able to do their job for their patients if they move to the state of Texas, and they're not coming. So what does that mean? We know the legislature, they care about money. Now, this is older data. If you read the small print, most of it was a survey from 2015, and then there was something that they got from some other agency in 2018. And we all know that the price of everything is very different in 2025 than it was in 2018. But nonetheless, this kind of gives you an idea for the economic impact of every one of these physicians that doesn't come to Texas. So in terms of jobs, when I was in private practice in Austin, it was me and 3 other partners, so 4 doctors. We had 30 employees in our practice. You know, billing people that answered the phone when people answered the phone, people that dealt with the insurance. We had nurses, we had sonography technicians, you know, so we had to pay them all. And of course, our patients paid us a fee, and we had lots of employees. And so, you know, these are small businesses, and they're going to be impacted because you can't have a doctor's office without a doctor. And that's going to be a problem. And so in terms of total economic activity, we know medicine's expensive. We all have seen the bills. We read about them. But it's a lot of money. And this, again, this is old data, so you can probably multiply this number. But you're talking about in the state, this is the United States, and probably Texas is not quite 20% of all this because we're a big state, but it's more than 2%, but probably not 25%, but it's big. But for the United States, it's 117 million, so let's just say it's 1/10 of that. I mean, that's $1 billion a year of economic activity. In Texas, yeah. And so wages and benefits, about $2 to $3 billion. And then state and local revenue from taxes for the state of Texas probably close to $1 billion. Because for me to have a license, I have to pay the Texas Medical Board several $100s, insurance, you know, all the things. Have to do it for the nurses that works for us, all this stuff. So there's a lot of money around medical practices. I don't think that's a secret, and but that's the cost of doing business to be able to take care of people. This is the one that really surprised me. Above the black line is what we always talk about and worry about. Now, this is national data, not Texas, but this is the primary care. The top line is urban, the middle line is suburban, all practices, hospitals, offices, and then the rural. And so green means not a very long wait. And the number in the box is the average number of days to get an appointment, not emergency care. So in the United States, we keep worrying about the primary care. You know, you might have to wait, you know, in 2022, right after the pandemic, you might have had to wait almost 2 weeks for an appointment, that's a long time if you're sick. But if you want to go see the orthopedic surgeon to fix your knee that you twisted walking the dog, like my wife is waiting on her, you know, operating room date for her torn cartilage because the dog, you know, chased a deer. 3 weeks. Wait. That's a long time if you're vomiting, bleeding, hurting, whatevering. So this impacts the specialty doctors, not just the primary care doctors. And this one really, really concerns me because if we don't take care of our women correctly, then they get sick. And they will get sick and die. They might not die if when they get sick, we send them to the ICU. So this came out this month, hot off the press. They sent a survey to every critical care practitioner in all the programs in the United States of America. That's about 1,200 or 1,300 doctors. This is open line. You can go read the article yourself. It's only 3 pages. And they ask those doctors, what impact has this law had on you? And these are doctors all over the country, not just state of Texas. Top line is the male doctors, bottom line is a female. If you look at, read the small print in the article, a little over half of the physicians are female in critical care specialty. So if you or your loved one's in the ICU, the doctor in charge of your care, 5 years from now is likely going to be 50-50 male or female. If that matters, you're intubated and probably, but it might matter to your grandchild who's in there visiting. Hopefully they'll visit you. I hope mine will. But anyway, so this is the survey, and top bar is, does a Dobbs Supreme Court decision has it impacted or will impact my decision about where I would work geographically? The next question is where I would live geographically. So, some people live out of town, but they work at the big hospital in town. So would I work there? Would I live there? And then the third question is, will the Dobbs Supreme Court decision, has it impacted or will it impact your decision about the type of health system you want to work in after training? That means public, private, religious, non-religious. In the state of Texas, we have a lot of religion-based hospitals. Baylor Scott and White, Baptist, Methodist, Catholic healthcare. So you can see they're going, I don't want to go work in those places where they're going to preach at me. I'll go to the other one. Who needs it? So this is the future. And tomorrow you're going to have an opportunity to impact the future. Now, it may not be this bad. It may all change. But what got me interested in this is residents that I had trained. I know them. They were in practice in town. And they called me and said, I'm leaving. I'm going to need a letter. Why are you leaving? You're doing great. You're practicing, this big practice. They go, I wrote a prescription for my patient. She had an ectopic, and the pharmacist wouldn't fill it because of the abortion laws. They went to the ER, and the ER sent her away. But I told her to go because but they just sent her away because they said we can't take care of you because of the abortion laws. So it's happening out there, and if it's happening in your town, get the story. So the summary, I showed you the bar graph for those of you who don't like looking at graphs. 65% of all the people in training that answered the survey, which was about 20, pretty good survey, 22 to 25% return rate. Both male and female, 65% said Dobbs influenced or will influence where they live in the future. 60%, 57.7% said Dobbs will influence their work region. And 62% said it will influence the type of hospital they work in. So these are people that they don't do OB-GYN. They don't give out birth control pills. They are not going to come to the state of Texas because of these laws. And we're going to pay the price for this. And our legislators need to hear this. I've tried to tell them, and I'm going to keep trying to tell them, because now I have the slide deck. And I made it just for you. Okay, so question number 2, what's the impact of abortion laws on workforce? Answer, the future of the healthcare system in Texas is at risk, and this will cost Texans billions of dollars. That's my opinion, and I think it's a fact, but we'll see. So what's the solution? Remove the criminal penalties for evidence-based healthcare. Because why do these people not want to come here? Because many of them are women, and they want to go to a place where if they need the care, if they want to start a family, and they have a complication, they can get what they need. Or if they have a daughter, and they got a grandbaby on the way, and that granddaughter has a problem. We do not want our granddaughters sent out of the hospital to die. That's not right. And these guys need to wake up. So, the other broader thing, which is clearly linked to this, which is of great importance, with all this stuff going on, one way to prevent needing an abortion is to not be pregnant. And one way to not get pregnant is to have access to some birth control. And so ACOG is going to be asking for that, and hopefully you'll see the connection to that, because that really kind of does prevent most of the problems. If someone doesn't have an unwanted pregnancy, then they don't have to worry about it if they don't get one. So there's personal stories out there. You saw a movie about several personal stories. Fun fact, maybe not that much fun, but one of those plaintiffs, Austin Denard, she was a medical student and a resident when I worked at Parkland. I used to take call with her. Then she graduated, she was on the faculty, and then I left. And next thing I see, she's on the news because she had an awful experience in her pregnancy. It's personal for me. So, you know the story of the Zorowski and Cox because you just saw the movie. Just showing you some articles in the lay press if you want to look them up. But I think what they want to hear is personal stories. Anybody can read the newspaper. That's, fake news, all that stuff. But here's one from me. So I live in a nice little neighborhood over here in Austin. Over by Mount Bunnell, there's a guy, he's an old geezer like me. We walk the dog, and I see him occasionally. And his son has been in training, and so he knew that I worked at, BRAC and then UT Southwestern, and so he had asked me about this and tell me about his son, because his son's an anesthesiologist that did extra training, one of these fellowships, to do obstetrical anesthesiology. The pregnant woman's best friend in labor and delivery is the anesthesia person. Okay? That's what he does. And he also takes care of the women that get sick from their pregnancy and have to go to the ICU because they know how to intubate and do all the stuff for critical care. So he's an important guy. He's well trained, and he finished his training up in New England area. And so I'm walking with his dad, and I've never met this guy, but he's at this Ivy League University hospital up in the Northeast after his training. And his dad, this is about 2023, about a year and a half ago, his dad goes, "Hey, did you hear that Texas Children's is building a hospital here in Austin?" And I'd heard that. And he said, "Yeah, my son, a headhunter called him, and he's coming down to interview." I said, "Great," And then I saw my friend about 6 weeks later, and I said, "Well, what'd your son think?" And he's going, he's not going to take the job because they offered him the job to be in charge of all anesthesia at the new Texas Children's Austin Hospital, and he declined the job because he didn't feel like he could practice appropriate care here in the state of Texas. Okay? So that's bad. So that's personal. So now I got a neighbor going, "What's going on? What's wrong?" And this guy's a lawyer, of course. And I go, "Well, you tell me." But so that's 2023. So then I go to this AAMC meeting, and we all have badges here, and mine says Texas. They don't know what I do. So one of these big headhunting firms sees that I was from Texas, and they go, "Oh, doctor, come over here. We want to, what do you do?" And I told her I was an MFM, and she's going, "What is going on in Texas?" And I said, "What do you mean?" She said, and she works for like this international recruiting firm. And the story she told me is, I call people, I start, talking about the position. They go, "What state is it in?" And when I say Texas, they go, "I'm not interested." So here's a recruiter willing to pay people like pro football players to come down for some of these jobs. Oh, we'll give you a $4 million contract with a, $600,000 kicker on it. And they're just hanging up because it's Texas. So how long do you think it's going to take before we start seeing that when we call our doctor's office wanting to be taken care of? So, see my neighbor again, literally just in December. It was cold. We were wearing this, wasn't cold enough. It's kind of summery here for Christmas. But anyway, so what you already know who the guy is. The follow-up is his wife got pregnant up there in the Northeast. I go to the fancy hospital that he's working at. She was about 20 weeks, started having some bleeding. They worked her up. They thought it might be something with the placenta, and they were watching her, and she was, sounded like she had pretty heavy bleeding, but she was about 5 months along. And they were really worried that it was not going to turn out well. And then the bleeding stopped, and they kept watching her, and they were sending her home. And I've done this thousands of times. You give the woman some, okay, so this is, might come back, maybe not, that's good. It's all good news today, but things could change. So don't get too far from a hospital. Don't go to that wedding shower. I can't tell you how many women I admitted to Brackenridge or Seton Hospital that were up at a wedding shower, because Austin's a wedding destination. And they're in the wedding party, and they're, 7 months along, and their water breaks or something, and they're in the hospital with me, and they're from, Sweetwater, Texas. Go, why am I here? And well, I don't know. Things happen. So, we always tell them, don't get too far from a blood bank or a ER. And what got me was, don't go to Texas. So here's a nurse up in New England. They have included that as a routine instruction for patients. Do not go to these states, you can die. So this doesn't make the paper, doesn't make the news, but that's what's going on, and we need to get this message out. So my charge to you is, now that you know what the impact is, what can you do? Go back home, call home tonight, tomorrow morning. You're writing postcards. Find a personal story. I bet all of you know at least one person that has had something bad happen to them. And it might be the pharmacist wouldn't give them their prescription for something. Or somebody said, well, we can't do that here, I can't really talk about it. All those things you saw in that movie tonight, I think that's going on everywhere. But I'm not everywhere, but a lot of you are everywhere. So if you hear a story, write it down. There's websites available that want to collect these stories. Manat is one of them, this consulting firm that did the workforce thing. You can contact them. You can contact ACOG. They're collecting stories. There's other places, if you know a reporter, tele-report, but the general public needs to understand that this dynamic is happening, because I've been seeing it for a year and a half. When my residents called me, and one of them, she grew up in Houston. She went to UT. She went to medical school at UT Houston. She was a resident of Parkland. Her life goal, I met her when she was an intern, her life goal was to move back home out on Katy Freeway and be with her friends and family and be the OB-GYN doctors to her girlfriends. She's in Colorado. When I saw her, I said, oh, how's it going? She just started crying. She said, Dr. Brown, I can't do it. I can't risk, I'm having my second baby, and I'm really afraid that if something went wrong, because, she's a doctor, she knows things can go wrong. And she was afraid to be in the state of Texas. So she now lives in Denver area. And she's going to be she's a great doctor. So this is real. And we got to do something. So find some stories, tell those stories, and they'll just, I don't know, they don't want to hear it. But we got a slide that has money. If all they care about is money, it's going to cost somebody some money. But what's more important, it's going to impact their families, and they need to wake up. So, this is what I wanted to do. Everybody know how you get to be a doctor, license, and practice, okay? You know about medical ethics. You know what's going on in Texas. And you're going to go ask a few questions. Okay? So these are the big links she'll give you. And for all you fact checkers out there, that's where my facts came from. Okay.